Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is grieving and fighting. On January 7th, 2026, she lost a 21-month-old son, Nkanu Nnamdi, at Euracare Multi-Specialist Hospital in Lagos. A child who should have returned home to toys and lullabies instead became a name in a lawsuit. Chimamanda and her husband alleged that medical negligence and overdose of sedation and denial of oxygen led to their son's death. International standards demand that sedated child on oxygen must receive continuous oxygen and constant monitoring of oxygen levels, pulse, and respiration. Did Eurocare do this? No, says Dr. Anthea Esege Wandu, an expert in internal medicine, and guess who she is? Chimamanda's sister-in-law. Now, Eurocare denies these allegations, yet one question hangs heavily in the air. What is my business, your business, with Chimamanda's fight for justice? We're all potential victims of this frequent but underreported tragedy. The African Research Journal on Medical Sciences says 16.5 to 90% of Nigerian healthcare professionals admitted to having made medical errors, including medication prescription and diagnostic error. In our hospitals, mistakes are quietly buried and renamed medical accident. In 2008, our friend Adetutu Badmus, fantastic broadcaster and voiceover artist, died in a labor ward barely a year after her wedding. At her service of songs, her elder brother, a doctor, said her death was due to negligence. Now, the pastor who officiated at Tutu's service of songs had also lost his own wife in similar circumstances. Even Chief Gani Fawehinmi, our human rights icon, was not spared. Misdiagnosed repeatedly and treated for pneumonia in a top Victoria Island hospital, Gani was eventually diagnosed with lung cancer after he sought care in London. Nigerians might never have known the truth about the cause of Gani's death. Chimamanda's fight against Eurocare is a proxy battle for countless silenced families told to make you leave them to God. Nigeria needs accountability and transparency in these matters. We need, for a fact, specialist law firms made up of legal and medical experts dedicated to confronting medical negligence. I think it's about time. We must follow this case because the next victim may not have a famous name and they will be alone in their pain and grief.
So the reason why I can relate with this is because two things. I have two stories. The first is this December, my friend got married, and so we went to Abia State, right? And it was a great wedding. I was doing a lot of work, making sure that everybody was okay. A lot of people came from Lagos. He's a celebrity, so a lot of celebrities were there. And we had the wedding, and then was the after party. I was tired, so I went to sleep. Then I came back out, and then we're all chilling at the after party. And the next thing we heard was fireworks. Like, everybody started running. And then, some people were taking videos, some people were running. I ran, and I literally left my slippers where I was, where it was before. And I think about 5 minutes to 10 minutes later, somebody was like, I couldn't see one of my friends, one of my very close friends. I'm like, where's Frank? And then they're like, oh, we don't know where he is. And then one of the guys that work at the hotel said, oh, he's over there, and he's really injured. So he was the one that started the fireworks, right? And I think the thing just and it was like his entire clothes were burned, like it was bad. This was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, and we're in the village. So we had to start looking for a way to get to the hospital. We got to the hospital. When I walked into the hospital, the things I saw at the emergency care center, I was just like,
this guy might die here.
The only reason why you don't understand what's going on in this country is because it hasn't happened to you yet. People are suffering. The lack of accountability, the lack of responsibility, the fact that people know that they can get away with things is destroying this country on the lower level. Nobody will know these things because the reason why we're talking about this here is because it's Chimamanda. Are we trying to say that something bad has to happen to someone that is influential before we can start tackling and talking about it? Are we saying that this has not been happening on the low key to people who are not powerful and influential? There is no accountability. I feel like our entire judicial system is so focused on the politics, but that's where money is. that we don't understand that they actually have a responsibility to play, and their real job is to protect the common man who do not have a voice. And that's where the biggest problem is.
I think Bright has really hit the nail on the head. A lot of things that happen in Nigeria are still happening because there are no consequences for action, be it in whether you want to go to politics, whatever you want to talk about, civil service, it's because you can get away with it. Because if someone has been used as scapegoats, everybody else would sit up and know that you can't do this. And like you said, you don't have to be an influential person. So many people die daily in Nigeria because of medical negligence. When I had my surgery, you know that I'm a very attention to details person. And when I tell you something is doing me one kind, you have to pay attention or we are still going to have that conversation. I was getting blood transfusion, right? I've gotten the first one, second one. And when it was the third one, I wasn't feeling myself. Like my heart rate was fast. I was temperature and everything. And I called the nurse. I'm like, I'm not feeling the way I'm supposed to feel. She looked at it, shook it. I said, don't worry, that's how it's supposed to be. I said, that cannot be how it's supposed to be because this is not the first pint I'm taking, right? This is the third one. So if this is how I'm supposed to feel, then it should have happened in the first one, right?
And you should explain to
She
me.
insisted that that's how I'm supposed to feel. When she walked out, I pulled the thing off my body and then I stayed. So I called a friend. When he came in, he then went to the doctor. They called everybody. They took my vitals and realized that my vitals had gone so high. Like in my whole life, I had never had that kind of vitals in my life, right? So they then took the blood back to check and realized that it wasn't, I don't know, something was wrong with it. But if I had kept quiet and said, the nurse said, or that is how it's supposed to be, or maybe perhaps if that was my first blood transfusion, because that experience was even my first experience ever in life to take a transfusion, right? I would have assumed that she was right. And the story would probably be a different thing today.
Story. And it will be covered up.
There has to be consequences for action. A lot of people have gone under the knife, even for fiber surgery. The surgery was successful, but for just one minor negligence, they die from, and they tell you, oh, the surgery was not, or they died or whatever. But that wasn't supposed to be the case. You know, so there has to begin to be consequences for action. When I cry every day about our judicial system, this is really my problem because if our judiciary is compromised, if it's not working the way it's supposed to work, then we can never have a society that works. It's that simple.
Euracare is a company that I was involved with until April of 2025. I was part of those who incorporated the company and took part in equipping the hospital. It was part of the group, that I was in, and I can say clearly without failing that it had some of the most, if not the most, it's one of the most equipped hospitals in Nigeria today. Because we didn't spare any expense, in making sure that hospital was fully equipped.
And talent.
And not just equipment, it had the best doctors and medical personnel. A lot of them were expatriates brought in. If they were not employed, we'll bring them in to run that hospital and all that. And I can say that the reputation of the hospital was not by hype. They earned it through diligent work and adherence to ethical standards. Now, there's one thing to run a hospital from the health management perspective. There's a business end of it. And I can say that to a large extent, the operating expenses of that hospital was incredibly high. And at some point, my organization took the decision to sell it to a local group. Okay, and that was what happened.
To sell it to a local group.
Yeah, we sold it to a local group. So while I don't want to preempt the investigation, into whatever happened, I can say to a large extent that so some people start talking about the hospital, as like, they earn their reputation. Some of the people mentioned in the statements or in the legal filings also are some of the best. I mean, the medical director, one of the best doctors I've ever seen.
But he was quoted as accepting the negligence.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said we need to leave it to investigations to do. Now, are there medical mistakes that hospitals make? Yes. Is it peculiar to Nigeria? No. Hospitals make mistakes all the time. The difference you find in Nigeria is that when mistakes are made, what do we learn from it? Is there a peer review
Do we
mechanism?
even accept that we've made a mistake?
Is there a peer review mechanism to make sure that others understand that, okay, if this happens, we should all make sure that we pay attention to this? In the same way, when you have an air crash, there are investigations, and then you find out that lesson is replicated to all aircrafts. Is there that kind of mechanism in Nigeria? Secondly, are there consequences to punish those who made the mistakes? So that's where we have to look internally in Nigeria and see what must be done in this case. It looks to me like a clear case of negligence.
Now, what this unfortunate incident did to us in Nigeria is that it gave voice to many who've gone through this. I remember, and I've read accounts of people who said, I lost my only brother to medical negligence. Yeah. Nothing was done. I lost my father. I lost my mother. I lost this. And you have reminded us of Adetutu Badmus' passing. It was a bitter passing for all of us in the broadcast industry at that time. And she was pregnant. And that child died inside of her, and nobody knew. Yet she was going for antenatals. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
And that was what killed Adetutu Badmus.
So, and all the bills were paid.
Gosh.
All the bills were paid.
I remember a friend who said to me, who recounted his wife's post-fibroid surgery experience. It was horrific. How the place ruptured. And they had to, literally use their hand to cover and run back to this very expensive hospital on the island, on Lagos Island again. I mean, remembrance, we remember. Look at Chimamanda's family. The sister-in-law is a doctor. The husband is a doctor. Look at Adetutu Badmus' family. The brother is a doctor. The pastor's wife passed on. Somebody else was a doctor in that family. So this is not isolated from those in the medical industry as well. We're all in this. And just as Yinka said, the best lesson in all of this is that we see that this tragic episode becomes a watershed in the occurrences of medical negligence in Nigeria.
In a system that lacks accountability, we are all victims waiting in line. It is not a matter of if or when.
Kingsley, let me apply this prognosis to the current world order, where might has taken the place of the rules-based system. I ask you, aren't we all sitting on a ticking time bomb? Tick-tock, tick-tock,